Excellent. Do we have another question?
We do indeed. We'll go to the phones now. We'll take a question from Mike. Go ahead with your question, please, Mike.
Yes, hi guys.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Doing real well, thanks. This makes a lot of sense to me. I've always liked the idea of assessment, particularly in theory, but in practice, have you taken stats on how this actually impacts length of stay, success of hire? So are there any numbers to support it being not just a good tool in theory, but a good tool in practice?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We've, I can think of several different ways to answer your question, but essentially what we've found statistically is that about a third of our success, and this is interesting because Herb first developed the Caliper profile. He always tells me to stop saying this, but it was nearly a half century ago. He says, stop saying that. It makes me sound so old. What we have is over 2 million individuals from countries all around the world have taken this. So there's an incredible base of knowledge about what makes people successful in leadership and management, in sales, in customer service, and in virtually every position. And the truth of the matter is that I believe that what Herb uncovered works better now and has more to do with success on a position now than it did even back 50 years ago because of the nature of jobs. So much of our success has to do with who we are and how we interact with other people. Any of those positions, something where sales is important. Obviously, whether you're motivated to persuade other people, whether you can read people well, and how well you handle rejection has a lot to do with how successful you're going to be in and of itself. But then also how well you relate to other people, how well you connect with your colleagues, and how well you'll connect with people in other companies has much to do with your success as the technical knowledge that you bring. And so what we've found is that in terms of measuring success, about a third of our success in positions such as leadership, management, sales, customer service, certainly in recruiting, and many of the positions that you're most interested in, have to do with the qualities that we bring.
Think about it this way, Mike. The things that come most easily to us on the job are typically the ones that we enjoy the most. So if we're able to discover what it is that most motivates us on the job, it's likely that not only our job performance but also our satisfaction with the job increases. And we know that job satisfaction is key to employee retention. So our research does in fact support that both job performance and job satisfaction increase the greater the match between personality and the requirements of the position are.
Does that help, Mike?
It didn't answer the question.
Okay.
But I understand, again, I think it's logically it makes sense that having a wealth of data works, but the question was whether there's specific stats that say that, hey, we have an extra, our average hire using the Caliper lasts an extra 6 months, or our success rate is X. It's okay. It's one of those things. Not everyone has taken stats period long.
You're talking about retention, and if somebody is hired using this approach, will they last longer in the position? Correct. And clearly we have statistics that demonstrate that based on different positions. One of the most important things in addition to this, Mike, is that certainly, as Cindy said, if somebody's cut out for a position, they will last longer because that it plays to who they are. And when they weigh out their job and what they're doing, it weighs out much more favorably. They enjoy what they're doing. As you know, when you're doing something that you dislike, you look over at the clock and say, geez, that didn't move at all. What's going on with that clock? And when you're doing something that just plays naturally to who you are, the time disappears. And you don't mind working harder and longer because the activity itself plays to your strengths, plays to who you are.
Well, it also points to the fact that there are so many variables that come into play when we talk about employee retention and job performance. It would be great if we could guarantee that a person might stay, X number of years or months longer, if they're matched, or to be able to say this is the silver bullet, but we're still looking for the silver bullet. It's certainly one factor in a very complex equation that can improve that rate.
The one thing that we did, we've researched a lot, and we love to interview clients on all of these matters, Mike. One of the things when we ask people why they've left a position, the most overwhelming reason it comes down to is a conflict with their manager. And that's why, in terms of Cindy's original response to the first question she had, the notion of the more we know about either you as a manager or the managers that you have on your team who are going to be working with these individuals, the better we can match the individuals so that there is the right chemistry going on. And we know that in terms of that somebody will stay a lot longer at what they're doing.
Okay, and thank you for your question. And we have several questions on chat. One from Deborah reads, my firm has been using assessments for 7 years. Some clients just don't seem to understand the importance of these tests. What is the best way to get that message across?
My professional experience has been allowing them to experience a profile themselves. And when they can understand how accurate it is and how insightful it can be in terms of maximizing one's potential on the job and really being able to put themselves in a position to play to their strengths. It then may take a little bit of education, however, by helping them to then make the correlations to their staff members or potential employees in the future. I think it's just a matter of walking them through that process.
And I think Glenda, it's a shame she had to jump off the call, because Glenda, I think, shared very well in terms of her own experience with OM5, her MRI office in Dallas, where what she has done is used it as a way to differentiate her company, and then uses it as a way to educate her clients on why somebody would be an ideal match or not. So it clearly, as you could hear from her, becomes very much part of her vocabulary and part of the way she talks to her clients about matching somebody, not just based on whether or not they have the right business acumen or the right technical talents, but whether they're really going to fit in with the culture and how they're going to work with the new manager and fit in with the team.
Okay, next question from Kyle. What is your recommendation for implementing the test? Screening or only on a final group of candidates?
Well, again, I think that's a question for which there's no one right answer. It really depends upon the circumstances, everything from the type of position that you're hiring for to the number of candidates that you'd like to interview. So there are some positions, entry-level positions, clerical or retail positions, where you may want to use a screener to help you determine a person's suitability early on in the process. However, for most management, leadership roles, more complex positions, we have often found that the most appropriate application can be to go through that screening process up front and narrow it down to your final 2 or 3 candidates, then to offer a full, comprehensive personality assessment to help you understand what the differentiating factors might be between those 3, again on a personality basis, to help you identify some questions that you may want to follow up on in the final interview, to determine behaviorally how a person uses the raw ingredients that they have, what compensating skills they may have developed to fill in their gaps, and then to help you make your final decision.
Right. And actually that plays into Caliper. We have a new approach to doing that, which allows us to do exactly what Cindy is talking about, so that whatever the position, whether a recruiter or a receptionist, as Glenda was talking about how she uses this assessment for virtually every position in her company, you can use the same in-depth personality profile, but at a much less expensive cost, use it as a screener to, for instance, if for the receptionist, you might be looking for somebody who is very flexible and very, very outgoing. Those might be 2 qualities that you in particular wanted to have. So you could use it as a screener and eliminate people who didn't measure up on those 2 qualities, narrow it down then to your final candidates, and look for a much more in-depth assessment of those final candidates to see who then would better fit into the culture, who might get along, more in terms of the culture and the organization that you have, and who would have the best chance of succeeding.
It's also great to remember that once you have the results of the full personality profile on hand, they can follow the person throughout their lifespan with the organization. So as they're being considered for other positions, or as they come up against some performance shortfalls and you need a little bit of help to figure it out, or as the team composition changes, it's another set of data that one can go back to and reassess, take another look at, and use in a variety of ways.
Okay, another question from Chad, and this is from Chuck. I recruit U.S. employees for non-American companies. If the hiring manager is not a native English speaker, is that an issue when trying to match up personalities? They all know English, but it's not their mother language.
The Caliper profile is offered in a number of languages that take into consideration the local norms. So depending upon the native language of a person, we can offer it in a variety of languages. And as well, when an individual is in another country, we can do a comparison between the norms of those two countries and make some assessment about the suitability and the degree to which a person is matched to those cultural differences.
Right. We actually have offices in 12 different countries around the world besides our headquarters in Princeton. And we work there with multinational companies as well as local companies, whether it's in Brazil or China or any country in between.
Okay, next question from Jeremy. What are other personality assessments that are scientifically validated beyond Caliper's assessment?
There must be one. I'm trying. There are, Caliper, obviously, Herb Greenberg, Caliper's founder, has really created the gold standard in terms of in-depth personality profiles, particularly in the workplace.
Okay, question from Kyle. Is it productive to proactively screen in cases of contract project workers?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think that's very, very important. Anybody who's going to be part of the team can change the mix, and I think we've all been in situations where one person comes in, and it's not to say you assess whether they have the particular talent you're looking for, but that one person can change the team's dynamics in such a way that something that was just working really well before all of a sudden becomes unpleasant and becomes, as a direct result of that, a lot less productive. So I would absolutely recommend that.
There are also some attributes that would be measured that I think would lend themselves towards a person being better suited than another perhaps for doing contract work. For example, flexibility and adaptability. If it's a position that's being filled where the person would be working remotely, we would look for plenty of self-structure and ability to organize and follow through on things with a minimal amount of supervision. So I think there are a couple of different levels of information that could be gleaned from doing that.
Right. I don't know if we have time for one more question or not.
Okay. Next one is from Kyle, and he asks about if you have any hard statistics regarding success rates. I think perhaps we touched upon that already, or?
I think we've touched upon it in a general way and would be happy to send some of the statistical supporting documentation to anyone. Probably the best way to request that information would be via the Caliper's website.
Right. Caliper has had articles in the Harvard Business Review and other scholarly publications in which the success rate is much, much higher in terms of using our approach. And you can rather than playing the odds, you can increase your percentage of bringing on the right person, depending upon your particular industry and situation, well into the 80 and 90 percentile.
And was it possible to provide the website? That was the next question that person had posted.
Terrific. We will. And for more information about using assessments, you can visit www.caliperonline.com. That's Caliperonline.com. Or you can email us at info@calipercorp.com. Or, of course, you can call us at 609-524-1200. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you've learned much and that you can join us for future webinars.
Patrick and Cindy, on behalf of ExecuNet, would like to take this moment to thank you for sharing your perspectives with us, and want to thank Joanne, our moderator, and invite all of you to